What are the most disturbing facts about the human body? Story 1, that you might have a serious illness at this very moment, but you don't know because there are no symptoms like early stages of kidney disease or cancer. You literally won't know unless it's a little late and your insides are messed up and start feeling wrong. Also, that the human body is very resilient and cannot be easily damaged, but once it does, it will never be the same again, even after you healed. Nurse here. Seen so many unseeable things that messed up the human body. Take care of your body. Drink plenty of water. You'll be surprised how many illnesses you can avoid just by drinking water. Story 2. Everyone gather around and hear the story of our friend Enterobius. Enterobius is a worm, and it loves two things: laying eggs and air. Now you get our little friend by eating its eggs, which hatch into larvae in your intestinal tract. But little Enterobiasis dislikes this smelly cave, so it decides to shimmy its way into your bloodstream in search of its other love, air, which it finds in your lungs. Baby enterobiasis then makes its way up your trachea, where you then cough and re-swallow these fickle crappers. Our friends then grow to their mega adult wormy form and are ready to start egging again. Except, needs more air. Where's the nearest air? The butt. Our friend enterobiasis then proceeds to lay its eggs around your butt. Story 3. Not exactly disturbing, but interesting. Your body actually has an innate plan for what needs to happen if you end up 20 plus feet underwater. This was commonly called the drowning response, but many have argued that this is a misnomer, as a drowning response should be activated at or near the surface, but there are some portions that don't happen there. For instance, the blood shift. When you are deep underwater, your body constricts the blood vessels in your extremities and non-immediately essential organs. Your heart slows. This allows you to not only survive, but to stay conscious, sharp, and alert at some pretty ridiculous depth. While you're down that deep, there's also an incredible calming sense that keeps you from getting all worked up and using all your oxygen too fast. Additionally, many, perhaps not most people, have the ability to run virtually entirely anaerobically for rather long periods of time. This is how people hold their breath for 10 plus minutes without going brain dead. Their body simply trips to run the anaerobic cycle and produce lactic acid, conserving their oxygen reserve to be used to keep the brain conscious. For these reasons, many have argued that this is far more likely a dive response, meaning that we're all a bit better prepared to be in the water than we've been led to believe. You are genetically engineered to be submersible. That's both a little weird and very cool. Story 4. I was pretty awestruck by the fact that there are more microbes, bacteria mostly, that call your body home than there are cells in your body. Also, when looking at another human, most of what you are seeing is dead. Your outermost layer of skin and your hair are made of old cells that are completely keratinized and therefore functionally dead. You start out as a little ball of cells, then you start caving in. Imagine pushing your finger into a ball of Play-Doh. This is your anus, and the hollow cavity will continue forming until it reaches your mouth. You now have a GI tract. Story 5. If an ingrown hair breaches the hypodermis, the innermost of 3 layers of skin, then it is likely to cause blood poisoning. Such cases often go undetected and can lead to gangrene and limb amputation. The most dangerous ingrowth is under the chin at the junction with the neck, what Redditors call the neck beard. This problem is more common than you think, so it is always advisable to shave along the grain with a single blade. Factoid: the roots of subcutaneous breaching were unknown until a factory in East Germany dumped an entire lot of low-quality twin blade razors into the Polish district of Lubuski. The Polish men had little experience with shaving till then, as beards had been normal until the communist regime conflated it with social misfits. This led to an epidemic of ingrown hair and several amputations due to subcutaneous breaching. After painstaking medical detective work, the roots of the problem were finally identified. Story 6. If our brain didn't give restrictions, we would destroy ourselves. We are strong enough that we can tear our own skin off just by gripping things tightly. We are strong enough to lift lorries and tear through concrete, but our brain stops us. We would bite our own tongues off or break our own teeth. Drugs like PCP can stop your brain from controlling you properly. This can allow people to do terrifying things using human strength. It also makes us do psychotic things. The combination is pretty close to the idea of infected. There are multiple stories of people eating others whilst on PCP, as well as people tearing their muscles to shreds by overexerting themselves or destroying the skin on their hands whilst clenching onto weapons. Story 7, biology major here. Time to shine. The body is composed of 10 times more bacteria than human cells. So you are more bacteria than you are. The bacteria, however, are very small compared to your eukaryotic cells. They mainly line your intestines and help with functions such as digestion. In a normal functioning adult, the immune system keeps these bacteria in check so that they won't cause any damages to your body. However, if the immune system becomes compromised, in cases of AIDS, chemo, etc., the bacteria will rise up and could possibly end you. So I hope you guys sleep well at night. There's something 10 times more abundant than you inside you just waiting for an opportunity to end you. Story 8. In terms of psychology and neuroscience, the physiology of psychology, we think of ourselves as unified individuals with a steady personality, but we are not. We are parliaments, composed of parliaments. Different aspects of personality and consciousness arise from different areas of the brain. As such, brain damage or development can completely alter one's personality. For instance, a railroad worker named Phineas Gage took a railroad spike through the front of his skull, destroying part of his prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is further in front of the motor association cortex, which is in front of the primary motor cortex, and is basically two levels of abstraction of planning voluntary motor movements. Simply, the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain where planning and thinking arises. Because of this brain damage, Phineas's personality was irreversibly altered. He used to be described as hardworking and responsible, but after the injury had poor self-control and had trouble holding a job because of his personality changes. Story 9. These all come from Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything. It's one of the best, most entertaining, and mind-blowing books you could read. A few errata in it, but surprisingly accurate overall. Atoms, in short, are very abundant. They are also fantastically durable. Because they are so long-lived, atoms really get around. Every atom you possess has almost certainly passed through several stars and been part of millions of organisms on its way to becoming you. We are each so atomically numerous and so vigorously recycled at death that a significant number of our atoms, up to 1 billion for each of us, it has been suggested, probably once belonged to Shakespeare. Story 10. Okay, this is weird, and I can't remember where I read this because it was in a library book I have since forgotten the title of, but I'm sure you can Google the premise and find more accurate information. I'm just giving a general rundown of the theory and study. Apparently, people and animals can sense when they are being stared at, oftentimes, even from great distances or through scopes and sights. The material I was reading proposed doing a simple experiment with a sleeping friend, pet or SO. You can literally stare at someone awake, or you can stare at a random stranger until they look your way. Not sure if this evolved as a part of a response to predatory flight and detection or human mating ritual, like why you stare at an attractive person until they look back. The theory and research conducted is highly interesting, and the fact that we have some sort of extrasensory response to staring is unsettling. Story 1. If you wear a glass, which vertically inverts your vision long enough, your brain will correct it and you'll see things as normal. But when you take those glasses off, everything will look upside down again until the brain recalibrates again. I ran into this a little with my glasses and contacts. My glasses correct for my mild astigmatism. My contacts don't. So, if I switch from one to the other, the level doesn't look level anymore. Like I'll hold my plate tilted toward or away from me to try to make it level. But whichever I put on in the morning, everything looks perfect basically immediately. But if I switch, it takes me a half hour or so to adjust. It took me 3 days to get used to my glasses the first time, though. Story 2. Our brain filters out a lot of what we see along with just straight making crap up based on extrapolation. Preconception always amazed me. That extrapolation allows your brain to estimate distances automatically and know the positioning of your arms and legs at all times. You can close your eyes and touch your nose with your finger without much thought involved. If a stroke knocks out that part of your brain, you have dysmetria, where you have a lot of difficulty subconsciously measuring distances. Story 3. The front of your tongue is curious, constantly patrolling, and autonomous. It chases the dentist around your mouth, and you aren't even aware of it. So embarrassing and weird, creepy. In dental school, I learned this fact when practicing taking impressions on each other. My buddy's tongue kept licking my finger. I asked him to quit licking me, and he was like, "I can't help it." And then we switched places, and my tongue wouldn't leave him alone. And for those of you that don't think your tongue does this, some of you are right, but the majority of you just think your tongue is behaving, but it is all over the place without you even knowing. Story 4. Heard a story of this guy who got an axe or something to his head. Destroyed most of his brain, except the part that processes routines. He got up from the bed beside his dead wife, got dressed, started brushing his teeth, what was left of them, casually checked the mirror and wiped his skin of some blood with tissue, walked around the house and collected newspapers from the doorstep, Eventually, he just collapsed. He was like a zombie, unaware of anything but for his routine. Really freaky. Story 5. The intestines are covered by a double fleece of peritoneum. See it like a blanket. When your intestines get damaged for whatever reason, this blanket starts moving out of itself and crawling upwards toward the place which has the injury. It will stay there until the injury is recovered, and then move on again. Maybe not the most creepy fact, but definitely interesting in my opinion. Story 6. The fact that the placebo effect even exists suggests that the brain does have some capacity to force the body to resolve diseases, and this has never been fully explained. Scientists are still exploring how this ability works and if it can be developed further. Story 7. When you get laser tattoo removal, the ink doesn't disappear. You pee it out. Your body's immune system breaks down the pigments of ink, and it flows in your bloodstream, gets processed through your kidney. Then you pee out the ink. Also, during the healing process of a tattoo, some of the ink gets transported away through the lymphatic system and ends up in nearby lymph nodes. Our body can't degrade it well, which is the purpose after all. So some of it just stays there. So for example, if you have a chest tattoo and would do a biopsy of the lymph nodes in the armpits, there's a good chance the tissue is colored. That's true. White blood cells specifically carry this task. The tattoo removal doesn't actually remove the ink. It breaks down the paint particles so small, so the white blood cells can carry them out faster. Naturally, the body is constantly fighting the tattoo. That's why over time, tattoos wear off, but never completely, because paint particles are too big for our white blood cells to get rid of them. If you have AIDS and you have a tattoo, your tattoo is most likely to stay fresh until you die. Story 8. My favorite is the blind spot at the center of each eye, where the optic nerve is. A lot of people don't even know it exists, and even if they do, it is bigger than people often think. And it's also really easy to demonstrate to people if you know how. It's one of my favorite bar tricks. All you need is a pen and a napkin to draw a cross and a dot. Story 9. The liver can grow parts of itself back. If you get a splinter or foreign object stuck in your skin, you can hold a flashlight against your skin and shine the light through your flesh, and the foreign object will be a dark spot. Light actually passes through our flesh quite well. Also, if you shine a bright enough light into your mouth, you can see the light in your own eyes. I remember watching a documentary or clip about some soldiers that witnessed an atomic bomb test. They recalled that they were told to crouch and cover their eyes with their hands. The light from the explosion was so bright, they could see the silhouettes of the bones in their hands. Story 10. The brain will always usually try to ensure its survival. If knocking you out does so, then you will faint for the safety of the brain. I remember finding this once, but I don't remember clearly. Your brain does a slightly similar thing with sleep exhaustion too. When it gets to such a severe point that things start breaking down, the brain will basically say, "Not on my watch," and put you into a microsleep. We've probably all had microsleeps before when we're overly tired, but the further you slip into sleep deprivation, the more dramatic they get. Your brain will trigger them more and more out of necessity, and you'll find it harder and harder to get out of them. When my sleep disorder was at its worst, I would find myself completely unable to open my eyes after my eyelids were dragged shut by sleepiness. The more I forced them open, the further I went into hypnagogic hallucinations. There'd be pink animals floating across the lecture hall. Sounds would become distant echoes, and everything would rapidly become a rainbow swirl of tunnel vision. My next recollection would be that time had jumped 3 minutes as I'd fallen unconscious on my desk. After each micro sleep, the next would be harder to snap out of because my brain needed to wrestle me down and hold me there. On bad days like that, I'd be unable to stop walking in the street because standing still would trigger micro sleeps, and I'd collapsed once or twice before. Same goes for the bus. Absolutely no sitting because I'd wake up at the terminal stop. I'd essentially had between 5 and 10 actual restful sleeps out of the whole 365 days. The other days could be a combination of 1 to 4 hours of effective sleep. Thankfully, my disorder is now about 75% treated. Story 11. In really bad cases of endometriosis, uterine tissue, the lining of the uterus, that is the blood and stuff shed during a period, can grow throughout the entire body. Colon, bladder, chest, even the head brain in rare cases. It's incredibly painful since it still tries to sheed, like a normal period but has nowhere to go. It can only be confirmed via surgery since it doesn't show up on most ultrasounds/MRI scans. I have stage 4 endo. It took several surgeries to actually get all the endometriosis removed because my body kept making more. Interestingly, the pain of endo is completely unrelated to the stage the patient is in. Every patient has a unique response. Also, we still don't know why or how it even happens. Researchers have basically stalled with their hands up in the air. Endocells can be compared to cancerous cells in the way they self-replicate so aggressively. Patients will only ever be in remission with endo, as it can recur even after a total salpingo-oophorectomy. Weird crap. Story 12. Allegedly, your immune system has no clue your eyes exist. Effective tomorrow, if your immune system found out about your eyes, it would treat them as an external threat. Therefore, try and neutralize your eyeballs, leaving you blind. True, eyes are so-called immune-privileged sites. Severe trauma to the eye could potentially expose the immune system to antigens of the eye. That's when things can go dark. Story 13. There is an urban myth that your fingernails continue to grow after death, which is supposed to explain why dead bodies often appear to have long nails. The truth is that the soft tissues in the fingers and hands tend to contract as they lose moisture, leading to the appearance of growing nails. Same reason people believed in vampires. The gums would retract, making it appear that the corpse had grown long teeth. It was thought the corpse was possessed by an evil spirit, which would feed on the blood of the living. And bingo, vampires enter mythology. Story 14. Human skin is overlaid with a pattern called Blaschko's lines, stripes covering the body from head to toe. The stripes run up and down your arms and legs and hug your torso. They wrap around the back of your head like a hood and across your face. You just can't see them. I just had to look these up, and it's super cool. Are you going to leave out the coolest part, though? You actually can see these lines, but only under a UV light. Story 15. It is believed that mitochondria were once separate living beings that were engulfed by another cell, but didn't die. Instead, they provided benefits to the engulfing cell. They are a separate being. Today, the human DNA has over 3 billion base pairs, while mitochondria only have about 16,000. You're a composite creature made up of at least 2 species. Story 16. The pancreas is able to secrete enzymes that digest food in a very effective manner. That also means that if said pancreatic enzymes happen to spill out into a place in your body where they're not supposed to be, example from some forms of direct trauma to the bile ducts, they'll digest your insides. To add on your comment, these enzymes are so strong and act so quickly that the pancreas has to create them in their deactivated form to avoid getting dissolved from the inside. They get activated only once they're in the intestine. Story 17. Phantom pain. When someone has their limb cut off, sometimes they can feel pain in the non-existing limb. That's because sensory nerves that relay information to the brain, although cut short, are still active. So sensation from that limb is still felt if those nerves get provoked. Story 18. Incident number 1. I had a bad enough broken bone when I was 9 that it almost killed me. Apparently the marrow that makes blood can't exist in your bloodstream, fun fact. Incident number 2. My orthopedist surgeon and my neurologist still don't have a good explanation as to how I have full range of motion in my leg. In other words, the ability to walk/run even. I've never seen a super smart guy like my neurologist just go, I don't really know, after I had broken my back and had nerve damage and partial paralysis in both legs. My neurologist says that sometimes cerebrospinal fluid can act as a bridge for major nerve damage, so maybe that. Otherwise, he wrote some published stuff about it that was more of a question than an answer, haha. All I know is that when I get x-rays done or switch doctors, the response is, how did you walk in here? It visibly unsettles them, like I'm playing a prank and my wheelchair is hidden somewhere, lol. I don't really care if I'm being honest. It hurts a lot sometimes, and people get really weird sometimes when I remind them that I can't do some things, but shrugs I can walk, so it doesn't matter much to me. Long story short, sometimes your body can do some weird and creepy crap that even the professionals go, eh? Story 19. How limited our minds are. An ant will never understand that being in my room when I'm vacuuming is a bad idea, but the knowledge exists. I'm sure there's a buttload of information about the universe staring right at us, but we'll never understand it because of our stupid human brains. I always view it as a sort of frame. A fish in a tank has a specific frame it can live in, the tank itself, as well as things it can, technically, perceive beyond that. The room the tank is in, for example. Anything beyond that is absolutely outside the fish's knowledge. For example, it has absolutely no chance of knowing my kitchen exists, generally speaking. I do believe humans have a better chance of maybe not breaking, but adjusting or widening that frame. But it'd be ridiculous to think we'd be able to know and perceive everything there is. This also applies to our own bodies as a specific frame we can do specific things with. While I can have a general idea of what it's like to be you, I'll never fully know. That and the fact everyone does the things they do for a reason really helps me in accepting different viewpoints, behaviors, and other things. Story 20. Our minds can be tricked, and our minds can trick us. Some people sleep with their eyes open. Our memories are fallible. If you remember something from 10 plus years ago, the events in your mind are likely to change. You might remember a couple things properly, but our memories are almost never 100% accurate. On top of that, we usually don't remember the unimportant stuff. Our dreams are a product of our subconscious, from any memory, especially recent ones. Story 21. There's a nerve that has the nerve of not knowing what its purpose is. Specifically, the ulnar nerve, aka the funny bone, rest taken from tumbler post. The reason it feels so weird to hit it is that it's not designed to deliver pain signal. So when you hit it, it just wiggles out and it sends garbage signals to the brain. And the brain is just like, oh, dude, ulnar, what the hell is this garbage? You're supposed to curl a finger in half and move some muscles in the forearm. Why are you sending me this crap? How am I supposed to make this into sensory output? And the ulnar nerve is just like, dude, brain, what the hell is going on? And the brain goes, idiot, fine, you're on fire, freezing and being electrocuted. Happy? And ulnar goes, holy crap, brain, I'm on fire, freezing and being electrocuted. What am I going to do? And the brain says, you're an idiot, ulnar, a damn idiot. Story 22. Our main organs, minus skin, are mostly protected by muscle walls and our rib cage, and yet we can survive with the one of any of the paired organs. Strangely, though, the spinal cord is extremely delicate and fragile and has almost no protection at all. The muscles we build on the back to protect it do not cover it, but rather cushion it from the sides and provide structural support. You could be very weak with almost no muscle mass and be fine after injury to the front of your torso. You could be the strongest person in the world, and a minor injury to your back can still render you completely paralyzed. Story 23. If you have severe mental illness like anxiety and depression, you feel like there's an entire universe within your brain. The amount of thoughts, pain, feelings, sensations, imaginations, and perceptions about everything and its complexity is just too much to handle. You literally feel like time has stopped and are living in an alternate reality. What I'm trying to say is, when you are mentally ill, you have no control over what your brain is feeding your mind, already considering that the brain has a high affinity towards negativity, thoughts, pain, etc. Your brain will turn against you. Mental illness is no joke. Please take care. Story 24. The fact that our chromosomes can never truly and perfectly replicate themselves. Most defections can be and are usually fixed and won't cause any harm. But if the damage is too big to be fixed, that cell will literally commit suicide. If it doesn't, the cells around it will try to kill it. If they can't, the immune system and white blood cells deal with it. But if a defected cell survives all three of these countermeasures, it will start to rapidly duplicate and replicate. This is how a tumor forms and how we get cancer. Cancer won't stop growing until its host is dead. This is also why it's this hard to treat, since cancer cells aren't a new organism. They are still fundamentally human cells. Any medication that aims to kill them risks the chance of killing the healthy cells with the cancer cells. This is why we can't be too aggressive with medication on cancer. Any part that can be physically removed will be removed via surgery, and the rest will be taken care of with chemotherapy and meds. If the tumor is big enough to be physically removed, but is in a position that makes it almost impossible to remove it, like around vital organs or veins, that person will most likely die. So yeah, there are only 3 measures between you and having cancer. Story 25. Not necessarily creepy, but your brain knows a lot that it just decides not to tell you. Like it knows why sleep is needed and why it dreams, or where core memories and all of that is stored. It just decides not to share that information with you. I guess there's an argument on what it means to know something. Like, for example, a clock doesn't know what time it is, it just shows it. A chatbot doesn't know what the words it says mean, it just outputs them based on inputs. One could say there's no way to know something unless something has a capacity for abstract thought, or unless something can react to information without external input. That sort of muddies the line into what is a flesh machine, an object that exists and does, and what is a being, something that acts and knows. Story 26. Maybe not creepy, but I think it's weird that some studies found that your body knows what you are going to decide to do before you actually decide to do it. So they found the muscles would get ready to do something, say press a certain button, before the person consciously decides to do it. Or your leg muscles will get ready before you make the decision to walk. So when we think we are making a certain choice, our body actually already knows what we are going to do. Story 27. You and your brain are 2 different organisms sharing one host. The scary part. When crap hits the fan, the brain takes over in an attempt to save itself. Inhaled smoke inside a burning house? Let's close the airways, because smoke is bad for the brain. Stuck in a freezing cave? Let's sleep and conserve energy and hope someone wakes us up. Lost in the wilderness and a bear got your leg? Let's crawl out to civilization anyway. Here, let me turn off the pain receptor. You might worsen your condition, but at least we'll live. Drowning? Let's shut down because the brain hates water. Smoking slash overeating slash alcohol is bad for you, but I kind of need it to feel good, so. Story 28. Maybe not creepy, but something that amazes me is its ability to heal itself, like it has a mind of its own. Get shot, stabbed, break a bone, get a nasty illness. The way it intuitively just knows how to fix itself is so cyborg to me. And to think we came from apes, which came from life's building blocks. Some carbon, maybe? Line and asteroid hit Earth with the building blocks of life. And here we are on the internet looking at corn. How did that happen? The whole evolution thing makes my brain hurt. I need to lie down now. Story 29. Strep A is a naturally occurring bacteria on the surface of your skin. Every once in a while, that bacteria manages to get into the bloodstream, and almost every time this happens, it causes a massive systemic immune response that overloads every system in your body and starts killing off all your organs trying to fight the strep A. This process is called streptococcal toxic shock syndrome, which almost always causes a massive cytokine storm, killing tissue and causing widespread internal necrosis. Almost everyone dies, but those that survive are often severely disfigured and crippled for the remainder of their life. Story 30. Humans can manipulate and condition other humans to do and believe almost anything under the right circumstances. The human brain has neuroplasticity, meaning that the brain can be molded into technically any way you'd like. If you take, say, 100 babies and raise them the exact same with the exact same beliefs, almost all of them would stick to that for the rest of their lives. Genetics are really only a minor role compared to the environment. Nurture is really overtaking the nature debate in psychology right now. Then you look at our society now and see that it's already happening with social media, shaping people into the exact same carbon copies. Story 31. One creepy fact about the human body is that we have mites living on our faces. These tiny creatures, called Demodex mites, can be found in hair follicles and sebaceous glands, particularly around the nose and eyelashes. They feed on dead skin cells and oils, and can be found on the majority of human adults. They are harmless for the most part, but in some cases, an overpopulation of these mites can lead to skin irritation and other issues. Another creepy fact is that the human body can produce maggots. Maggots are the larvae of flies, and they can be found in wounds that have become infected. The flies lay their eggs in the wound, and when the eggs hatch, the maggots feed on the infected tissue. This process is called meiosis, and it's a common problem in tropical regions where flies are more prevalent. A third fact that might be considered creepy is that our brain is capable of creating hallucinations, even when we are wide awake. A hallucination is a perception in the absence of an external stimulus, and it can come in many forms, from hearing voices to seeing things that aren't there, to experiencing strange smells or even taste. Some people might experience hallucinations as a symptom of a mental health condition, but others might experience them due to drug use or other causes. It's important to note that the facts I've mentioned are not intended to be disturbing, but rather to provide information about the human body that might be considered unusual or unexpected. I apologize if it made you uncomfortable. I am here to assist you, so please let me know if you have any other questions.